All right, we're back for another episode of Generative Genius, talking to brand marketers about the importance of AI and using it across their entire marketing mix. I'm Steven Strauss. I've been hosting this series of episodes across LinkedIn for, gosh, just over 3 or 4 weeks now. And it's been super fun to get to reconnect with so many of my colleagues in the industry across the experience that I've had in the last 20 years. And I'm really excited today to have one of those folks who I consider a friend, Liz Crisafi, join us. So, Liz, it's really nice to have you here today. I'd love for you to introduce yourself for the audience.
Well, thank you, Stephen. And I consider you a dear friend as well. So thank you for having me on. And yeah, I love, continuing to learn and to talk about AI. So, as I think about my career, I have a little bit of a portfolio career through several different industries, including started really, my career at Kodak. For those of you who have not heard of the company, it was the largest brand in the world, when I started my marketing career. And it was incredible to think about innovation and how that business model changed all the way up to I worked across, other industries like Discovery Communications, Kimberly-Clark, and even tried a stint on the agency side, which I love just because I wanted to get more involved in the creative process at Ogilvy. And then I spent the last decade basically at IHG Hotels and Resorts, so in hospitality. Hopefully you're not doing the math to figure out that I have, a seasoned career. I think that's the way we can.
Sure, 1 to 2 years at each one of those places, right? That's what I'm seeing and hearing.
More than that. I like to, be there for a while, but it definitely, it all great experiences that kind of gave me something new to think about as we look at like the future of innovation and marketing that's changed over the last, let's just say 20 plus years. And, making sure that you're embracing the future. And that is where AI is changing every day. And I'm so excited about what's happening.
Totally. And one of the things that I've really wanted to focus in on the conversations we've had with brand marketers so far has really been to talk about the specific things that we're seeing, right? AI is this topic that's talked about in general. It's two letters that are a buzzword, and people, I find, talk around it a lot. And what I've really enjoyed is like being able to get some very specific examples, ways that people are actually leveraging or using it, what their understanding truly looks like. But at the end of the day, what AI brings us, and specifically generative AI, is very much a transformative property to the way that we think about marketing today. And so I guess for starting out there in a broad capacity, Liz, like what are your thoughts on AI's ability to truly transform marketing strategy overall? And maybe an example or two of like where you've seen it be super relevant, even though we're at kind of still at its infancy in starting to implement it across our different programs and ideas.
Yeah, I think it's really a game changer for so many different aspects of how you currently do work today, all the way to how you can continue to think about the future of your product and, testing and learning and so forth. So being very specific, as you look at generative AI in the how you can take efficiency within your work and be able to apply something that used to take 7 days or 7 hours and take it down to 7 minutes. I mean,
Sure.
as easy as writing a brief. There are things that you can put that are filled in with AI that helps you, really standardize the way that you can create a strategy brief or a business plan, all the way through, data and analytics. And in the past, as an example, in hospitality, you're looking at certain trends or you're being able to create performas, right? An expectation of what's going to happen over the next 6 months and what are the types of offers or the types of loyalty engagement, et cetera, that you may want to create. And a performa used to take a team weeks and weeks to potentially go through that data to sift through all of the first party data as well as third party, insights, and then come up with a, hypothesis. And now you can truncate that and really create some great efficiencies and speed to market by getting that data back, sometimes even real time.
Sure.
And so I think that that is a game changer for how you can look at it from a brand or, a commercial marketing standpoint as well.
Totally. I think what's really interesting too there, and we've talked a little bit about this in past episodes. We've talked a lot about kind of like the David versus Goliath mentality, right? How does it how does generative AI help small businesses compete with larger businesses that are out there? But also what I want to say for you, you've worked with some of the largest companies in the world.
Mhm.
I'd love to get like the alternative perspective on that. And how are you seeing it leveraged by larger organizations and it's still being that same game changer that those organizations are looking to have it assist with or help with?
Yeah. I think you can look at it, especially from a larger organization. It has its, risks, because you have standard and set teams and tools and infrastructure that sometimes is really hard to adapt to.
Sure.
So when you think about it that way, it could be slower, or at least it could be a larger risk to change something so quickly. But I do think that the way that it's starting to really be applied and thought of in especially larger, brand organizations is very much a how you can create, content as an example, and create versions of that content. Again, you would work with an agency, or you would work with a partner to take a piece of content, and then it would take a human, X amount of hours to go and say, all right, I'm going to change this particular copy to this language. Or if it's transcreated in another region, then you want to make sure that you are changing anything that would be sensitive to that market. And that would take time. And I think that, like, in these large organizations, you can find the efficiency and speed to do global marketing, as an example,
Sure.
is really, unlocking potential. And, you know, for those resources, it gives them the opportunity to focus in on other areas. So I think that, that is one area that I'm really excited about, is just the efficiency, effectiveness, and the opportunity to create more personalized versions, not only within certain aspects of your creative, but certain aspects of your segments and your
Sure.
audiences.
Yeah, I mean, efficiency, right, being a huge piece of this. The idea that I can now get a lot more done with a lot less time overall. And I think, at least what I think about as you talk about those key moments, personalization, efficiency, things like that, is, even the smallest business is tracking specific KPIs or measurement, opportunities to think through that. I feel like as you get into a large organization, those become more established. They become more specific. They become more, I guess, understandable in the impact that they have across the brand that you're working with. So have you seen, in starting to work in with some different AI technology that's out there, have you seen specific ways of measurement into like the success and or the way that you should measure success specifically with these technologies, ideas, tools, partners?
I think with this, it's like anything. You have to create small goals along the way and small KPIs. When you look at, AI and generative AI as a whole, it sometimes can be overwhelming to say, like, what does success look like if you're trying to implement that? And it is very much sometimes focused in the how you get it done, and you lose the lens of why you're trying to do it. And
Sure.
so as we, as marketers are sometimes feeling a little paralyzed to say, like, where do I plug this in? Because it could be anywhere and everywhere. But if you're not really super focused on, let's make some small progress along the way, whether it's versioning your email, whether it's being able to enhance SEO, or, just even, as I mentioned, with content specifically, is create content much more effective and efficient within your working to non-working spend, because that also is, a huge lever that you can kind of pick, or kind of put together as it is a KPI of like, I'm going to actually use this tool and generative AI to put more marketing spend in my working dollars instead of my non-working dollars. And I think that that's the way you should think about your goals and your measures of success, is like in these small bite-sized chunks, depending on what you're trying to do.
Totally. Are there any specific tools that, like people talk a lot about ChatGPT, Midjourney, Opus, all these different ones. Are there any specific ones that you've been like playing with or like really dived into or really want to get to know better?
All of them, honestly. I'm trying to personally, on the personal side, is just looking at where I can be even better in communicating with family and friends. So I think that between Chat GPT or Gemini, I think you're not looking for those tools to do things for you, but to make you work more efficiently with it, even in your day.
Sure.
I think that on the corporate side or the professional side, a lot of what I've seen is taking these tools and then obviously customizing them using your first party data, creating something that's very specific to your industry and or to your need. And I think that that's where um, it's really great to understand like which of these tools will be best for what whether it's hospitality, whether it's CPG, whether it is um, you know fashion. I think that there may be different tools that are probably better suited depending on what your customer interaction and engagement is as well.
Totally. You talked earlier too about personalization, right? And that being a major point. Global personalization truly is like what I'm equating in what you're speaking to. What does that open up for a brand using AI in this global personalization opportunity versus kind of the traditional methods or ideas that we've thought about personalization in the past, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I will say, like, personalization is one that you can ask like five different people their interpretation of it, and you'll probably get five different answers, right?
Totally.
Um, but in the true form of personalization, I think what we have been doing in the past has really been more relevancy and relevant marketing. So if you think, if you look at it from an audience standpoint, you've got segments. So you've got your data and you create different segments, whether it's next generation or it's old generation or it's, creating content that is relevant for those audiences. I think with personalization and what AI can do is actually now be a lot more tailored on what does Liz, like to do, and what are the first party data markers and or third party data that then can make it much more of a personalized experience. And I'll give you a great example, if you don't mind. I was working on some, understanding of where people are really using their first party data to create much more relevant customer interactions, even in their customer service. And
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to have an experience with Chewy because I have two fur babies, and I was going through ordering my dog food, and they were out of dog food. They're the one that I typically order. And so when I started going into their customer service, system, and basically I could tell that the AI engine was trying to get me, connected to a live agent, but it was asking me very relevant and conversational questions where I felt like I was not talking to a bot. I felt like I was talking to someone who uh, was empathetic, and or at least was able to get me the answers that I needed, and even asked about my dogs by name. And I was like, that was a really great interaction. And I knew I wasn't necessarily interacting with a customer service rep at that point, but I felt cared for. And I think that that was where you can take data, AI, and this experience so that you don't lose people once you are trying to get them through the process. I have experience, I'm sure you probably have too, of the previous years where you would be on the phone and you were like, representative,
Well,
representative, or,
yeah.
hate you, and you hang up the phone because you've had such a bad interaction with that brand before you even get to talk to a live person. And so I think AI is in generative AI and data has been able to really help bridge that gap.
I find it really interesting what you talk about on the chewy side. Did they tell you? Because unfortunately, I do not have a fur baby myself. I'm allergic, which is the worst. But that being said, I love dogs. I love cats. But with that, do they tell you that it's an autonomous agent? Like as you're interacting with it, like this is one of the things that's always come up in when we interact as humans with AI is, and I think that's what big companies, and I think it's what actually all companies struggle with is, do I need to let you know that I'm an AI agent, or is it going to be good enough to where it just sounds like a person or acts like a person or types like a person? Therefore, I should just infer. Like, what was their? I'm curious, like what their experience was. Do you remember?
I mean, I don't remember to a level of specificity that probably can get to that question, but I do think that it was more of let me connect you to an agent, but I want to ask you a couple of relevant questions. And so I think the expectation was I'm not talking to a human yet because they just informed me that I'm about to be
Gotcha.
connected. But while I'm waiting, they were, making sure that I felt heard and seen and taken care of, and not just in some random, queue. And so I think that all brands can think about that of you're not going to want to take away the personal connection of your customer service and service recovery and all of that, but you
Sure.
do want to create some level of empathy and conversation and ability to expedite customers that feel like you're about to lose them in the process, because once you lose that customer based on that interaction, it's really hard to get them back.
Totally. Is there a way? So you talk about the importance and the value of personalization. Is there ever a time where it could be over personalized? Like I think about it as where they asked you your dog's name, but what if they just told you that they knew your dog's name right
Yes.
in the conversation too? Like, does that become a point where as a consumer, you're like, wait, whoa, how much does this person know? Like, are those risks real, and how do brands try to avoid them? Because that's kind of an awkward experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It can get to a point where it becomes frustrating and or creepy, depending on how, the level of personalization that you have. I think the key thing that you need to look at with personalization is co-creation of your interaction. And so, in hospitality, if you were to go to a hotel website and you were to search for hotels in Atlanta, and then you come back a couple of times to that same website and they're only talking about hotels in Atlanta, then they're only taking, some level of interaction and data from your last experience. I think with AI, even in what's happening within SEO and search, is that it's providing you with real time conversation and engagement based on what I'm looking for today, not what I was looking for 2 weeks ago. And
Right.
so I think that that's where too personalization can be dated if you're not staying on top of that interaction, and making sure that you're listening to cues from customers, and what they do and don't want to hear, and then make sure that if you do cross that boundary of like I've contacted you too many times, and there is also a point of where I'm frustrating you, that you have to make sure that you're looking at engagement as well.
Well, I think it's really interesting too because travel is a great example of, especially for business travelers, what I looked at 2 weeks ago may not be what I'm looking at next week or the following week, right? It's not like I'm going to the grocery store and I always buy the same things. And maybe I try something new here or there, but pretty much a staple. Or even like vacation planning, like I'm planning this one big thing and then I'm done. I feel like the just travel in general, that would be really nice to have that understanding, because if I knew that I had searched for a different place to go to and then I went there, over the right, like I can identify as a business traveler, and now maybe the type of perks, the type of things I put in front of you, they change completely because that travel experience is completely different than kind of regular everyday consumer.
Yeah. And not to mention the fact that you probably, Stephen, travel for work, you travel for personal, you travel, for different special occasions. And so even that, you have to be mindful of like the purpose of why you're traveling and what are the recommendations. How do I make your booking easier? How do I provide you with, additional experiences that will meet the needs depending on which version of Steven is traveling this week?
Totally, totally, totally. So we talked. So Liz, the other thing too, I think is really fascinating about this whole thing. We talked a little bit about how brands can remain safe, but there's an ethical conversation that's happening around utilizing this type. We've talked a lot about the neat ways that we can
Yeah.
use AI, right, that benefit us. But I think that like a lot of brands are torn between the way that they should align ethically with this versus the way that customers think about it and all of those kind of things. Who owns my data? Right? If my data ends up in an algorithm, in some sort of AI algorithm, like what happens to it then? You talked about content creation earlier. We have, who owns content? How much of it is taken from what artists have built? Like there's all this kind of pending ethical, further understanding ethically, I think that we need to really understand the components that make this up. From a brand perspective, like how can you make sure that your core values stay within the ethical standards and that you can still leverage things for the benefits that we've talked about today?
Well, I think it boils down to that AI should just be a tool to tell your brand story and to create brand trust in a way that amplifies who you are at the core. I think where, it gets into some dangerous territory is when you are creating false expectations, for one. If you're, making some claim that you actually aren't able to defend and certainly doesn't stay true to who you are as a brand. I think the other is creating some level of brand trust within the content that you're creating. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you're telling a story, and just staying in the travel kind of topic, is if I went through and created some video or content that's showing a hotel in the wrong light, and you go and like, oh, this looks like the great hotel I'm going to go stay at, but I've actually used just stock imagery, and you go and you show up at that hotel and it's nothing like you expected, then again, you're creating something that is actually going to amplify and create a lot of mistrust, and it could damage your brand in the long run. And so I think you just have to be really careful in how you're using this to tell the right story, to amplify at the core who you are as a brand, and not try to create something that is disingenuous, or that is not really at the heart of what your brand stands for, what your employees stand for. Because it also, when you think about a lot of what you're trying to do within your brand, is not just for the customers, or it's not just for the, in hotels for franchise and owners, it's also for your employees, because they have to feel
Sure.
good about the brand that they're working for. So think about it. It's a ripple effect. It's not just the customer who gets hurt if you use it in the wrong way.
Well, especially if the majority of your employees are on the front lines as
Yeah.
the face of the brand every single day, right? I mean, that's the other reason that you really need them to buy in and be on the same page as the brand, because they are the brand. Let's be honest.
Absolutely. If your employees aren't living and breathing your brand every day, then you're not going to be really developing that brand engagement, that brand love that you're looking for, because it has to start with your employees. To your point.
Totally, totally, totally. You talked earlier too about creative briefs, and as we get like into the content realm and the content world, have you seen anybody out there right now that you think is doing something interesting on the AI front when it comes to leveraging AI in a content brief or in actual content creation?
I mean, I think we've probably seen examples that have been good and some that have been bad, for sure. I won't mention any of the bad ones, but on the positive side, and I think, just one that comes to mind is Sephora actually has been doing a really good job of trying to create content that it helps, you know streamline choice and look at your personal, like for me, I'm strawberry blonde, I won't say pale. Let's say I'm a
Yes,
strawberry blonde who is sun challenged and that I need a fair complexion. And so when it comes to makeup, and so when you kind of go into their site, or if you look at what they're trying to do, not only through their app and through their website, but also just even in some of the retargeting, it is very much, leveraging AI to create some recommendation tools that I think have been really cool and have unfortunately made me buy way too much Sephora product lately. But I think that, those are the things that, appeal to me when it's actually looking at data, it's looking at past purchase history, it's leveraging AI, creating recommendations in real time. And we're all so overwhelmed by choice that it's making it easier instead of having to filter through like all the different options of brands or types of product, et cetera. It's actually saying like I can get you in and out and create your shopping experience much better for you, and that will help you get on with your day. I think on the more of the, let's just call it brand building side, I've seen a lot of brands, including a few maybe that I've worked for recently, that have taken content which is leveraging b-roll content and leveraging copy and leveraging the opportunity to create these versions of videos that are real time and that allow you to actually do a lot of the real time. Sorry, can I cut that for a second?
Yeah, totally. Cut.
Cut. Ah, I was just gonna say I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Okay, tell me when to start or where you want to start from.
We're just going to start. I will just start right where you want to. Do you know where you want to take the conversation? So we talked about Sephora
Yeah.
as somebody that you've liked in the content space,
Yeah.
and
So
then
I don't need to go back to Sephora, right? Okay.
and then so whatever you want to say after that, I'm fine.
Okay.
All right.
So,
Cool. Go.
all right. So I think, in another example as it relates to creative and more like brand awareness and or video content out in the market is take example again, travel and or experiences, and you don't necessarily need to create an AI version of a person talking about their experiences or create something from scratch. You actually can take existing content like b-roll as an example of uh, video that you have never really been able to fully utilize, and put that into an AI engine and say, I want to create a video of the Caribbean and this particular location, and here's all the video from the Caribbean, and we want to make a 30-second spot. Like there is an opportunity to like go through hours and hours and hours of b-roll and actually pull out video content that allows you to quickly create something that would again have taken hours and hours, and or make sure that you test it in real time. So creative testing is another great way that you can say, all right, I'm going to look at this video as option A that is all about the beach, and this video option B is all about families enjoying experiences, and option C is all about F&B and the experience at the bar. And then you can take your segments or your community of segments and then test in real time how do they engage with that. And I think that actually is just leveraging the tools that you have to be able to unlock speed, relevancy, and then eventually get into more personalized content that is like, that's exactly what I was looking for. I want to go to that beach and I want to experience that particular, you know, um, vacation experience that I've been searching for. And so that I think is taking content and creative that brands have at their fingertips right now and being able to develop these things that are authentic and real and true to your brand, and not having to go and generate something from scratch.
I mean, I may be near and dear to my heart to take content that you already own and ultimately make sure you get the most out of it. But that's a different conversation. We don't have to have that one today. But look, I totally agree with you, right? How do we make sure we're spending all this time and energy and money getting content? And for the longest time, I need more content, more content, more content. We are in such a focused, like, what's the next thing, that we forget about all this great content that sits in the past. And now I've already bought it. I've already paid for it. It already sits there. As I look for ways to be optimized, yeah, I want a new idea, but I also want to keep the evergreen status of what I'm doing as an organization. That's got to continue on as well. And so
Yeah.
how do I go back and remake that? And by the way, it's not a new idea. It's just that there's so much content that actually sits there, right? Legacy content has long been used, or vintage content has long been used, right?
Oh,
In brand strategy. But this is a totally different element. It takes an almost everyday approach to be able, what you're talking about is like an everyday approach towards content I already have. And now let consumers tell me what they actually like to interact with. And if I don't have to pay exorbitant fees to go recreate that type of content because I already have it, well, man, what a great testing opportunity that you have.
yeah, exactly. I mean, think about even if you were to find a perfect image that you wanted to use in your marketing or your ad, and it was a summer image, but you were marketing in the winter or fall, and you're like, I really just want to use this image. You can actually still take that content and quickly adapt it. Versus, to your point, it may have taken, the creative team or the agency hours and hours to come back and then give you 3 or 4 more options that you're not as happy with as that first one that you really felt like was true to your brand. And so the ability to even do that, I think, is a huge game changer in the way that we go to market.
Totally, 100%. This has been super fun. I wanted to today thank you for your time. I know we've already run through, and man, it feels like we just started talking, but we've made it all the way in having a great conversation today. Any parting thoughts just on AI in general, ideas, things that are upcoming for you? Would love to just have some final thoughts from you.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I can't believe I love talking about this. You can tell I'm very passionate and get super excited. Is this where the nerdy marketer in me comes out, for sure? And so I'm just trying to stay on top of everything that's changing so rapidly. But at the same time, understand how to apply it to, what I'm thinking about, not only for, clients that I'm working with right now, or, my potential, next opportunity as I'm looking at, um, sorry, cut.
Okay,
I was rambling on that one. I was going so well.
all
Where do
good.
you, okay.
I'll just
I'm
ask you
gonna,
questions again. Any final thoughts, and then you can let me know.
okay.
All right,
I,
Liz,
you
it's
know,
been perfect. Liz, it's been super fun having the conversation today. Any final or parting thoughts that you have for us or our audience?
yeah. So first of all, thanks, Stephen. This was great. I mean, I love just chatting with you because I learned as much from you, as hopefully if I've imparted any words of wisdom to you, or to the audience. So thank you for having me. And I would just say, for me, it's just all about ongoing education and continuing to stay on top of what's happening, both the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we're all in this together and we're going to learn together. We're going to fail fast. We're going to test. And we're going to be able to be even more efficient marketers on the other end of that. And like the nerdy marketer in me, just gets really passionate and excited about it. So I'm excited to be with everybody on this journey.
Love that. Very, very good and well said to end things out. I think this is where I'm supposed to say, for your exact needs, this way, subscribe to the channel, right? What I'm supposed to like point to a link that's here or here and say, subscribe to this. We've all watched it. So exactly right. Like, please do. I'd love for you to continue. We've got a whole great slew of guests, including yourself, that are going to be part of this ongoing series with that exact goal, right? Which is, how do we continue to have a real conversation around what's going on with AI and generative AI, truly for marketers in the marketing space. So thank you again for your time today. It's been super fun. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much.
All right, take care, Liz.